Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer action. Oh yeah, Gorok. Go forth. Saurus. Oh yeah, I was talking about the quote-unquote Gotrek problem, or the Footlord problem. Hadriz is the credit to him for calling it the Gotrek problem. But yeah, Tomb Kings generally tend to struggle against armored, tanky single entities, and especially those with good damage output like Gorok. Now, Gorok has 60 melee defense, which is obviously very good, but he doesn't have any regeneration effects. That being said, he does have some good support buffs. Stand your ground, always nice. Shield of Eons, plus 60 armor and expert charge defense is very good. And Mace of Olmec, of course, just uses himself up to be even scarier. Unfortunately, he is taking some Ushabti Greatbow fire, and we've got a pre-nerf Casket of Souls here, the screaming, not quite the screaming memes, but yeah, the pre-nerf basically Hell Cannon Casket. Hopefully you guys are, well, this will basically give you a point of comparison, because you guys have the live build right now, right? So, got some Skink Skirmishers, 2 Razordon Hunting Packs, Lore of Heavens, and a bunch of Chevron Saurus, Cohort of Sotek, and a couple of Javelin Skinks for the Tomb Kings, Kotep on his screaming memes, and a second screaming, sorry, not screaming meme. I always just, I mean, it is kind of a screaming meme, but the casket of souls here, double Ushabti Greatbows, Necrotect, Lich with light, and we've also got Sepulchral Stalkers. So, just going to be pushing all across the field here. The idea is to just use these Saurus. They've got good leadership with the Chevrons, they've got great stats, and Saurus' main weakness is their low melee attack. Of course, with the stats, that does help a little bit. They can just hit more consistently against these lower tier skeletons and be able to clear through them pretty quickly. Pyro Titan in here going to be providing some nice terror as well, of course. Oh yeah, nice laser attack animation. He's actually doing a lot of damage to Gorok and this Saurus Scarvet here. Saurus Scarvet gets pretty quickly terrified without doing a whole lot of damage. That Necrotect also with Barona's Time Warp up to 69 melee attack with anti-infantry. Going to be connecting pretty well, and you can see Gorok is not too happy there. I popped his buffs now, but he's not doing great, especially against that Barona's Time Warp. Yeah, very, very nice use of that there. Great melee attack buff, up to 80 attack on the Hyro Titan, so yeah. Gorok's getting stepped on pretty hard here, so much for Tank Lord, right? But you should be able to pull through. We've got these Razordon Hunting Packs over here. Looks like we're going to get the Ushabti Summon, and look at that screaming, not the screaming memes, the casket. Absolutely shredding these Razordons here that have been netted. I am able to get some pretty good counterfire on those Ushabti Greatbows, though, and just about take them down. We've also started to overrun into the second line with the Chevron Saurus. Despite the damage from the caskets, I was initially very worried because I thought all these Saurus were just going to get deleted super fast, but, I mean, with the Red Crest as well, Cohort of Sotek are basically a hard counter to Ushabti Greatbows if you can catch them. Ushabti Greatbows will get poisoned, and they aren't fast enough to get away from the Cohort of Sotek, plus that nice AP, and of course, against the low-ish melee defense of the Ushabti Greatbows, will do quite a bit of consistent damage. Likewise, the Saurus with the Chevrons, just the massive weapon strength there, will eventually kind of grind through these bows. So looking pretty decent. Kotep here, Roombaing through some of these lizards. Even Skinks getting involved, and some very nice rear fire from those Stalkers. The Summoned Ushabti going to come in for a rear charge here, as they had mostly routed off my Razordons. And honestly, things are not looking great in terms of the balance of power, because Gorok, the Tank Lord himself, just went down to another Barona's Time Warp here. Now it's up to the Scarvet to carry the day. And that Hyro Titan's also getting pretty low. We've been able to kind of get some chip damage here and there, and that Harmonic Convergence definitely coming in key. I didn't highlight it too much, but that Skink Priest with the Harmonic Convergence doing pretty well. He's now going to come in and fight the Lich Priest, so the... oh, maybe not. They decided they're just going to Wizard Duel instead for the time being. Oh man, and the Sepulchral Stalker's actually trying to snipe out that poor Skink Bro. He's actually going to rout. The Scarvet gets terrified, but we were able to shut down the 2 Ushabti Greatbows, and now likewise, Grand Hierophant Kotep is the sacrifice. These boys want those bones for Sotek, and they're coming for him. Oh man, I would imagine those little boppers too would be great for smashing that giant pile of bones and like breaking the caskets like rocks and stuff. So yeah, Kotep definitely not in for a good time. Trying to get some supporting fire from those Sepulchral Stalkers. Try and use up the rest of their ammunition. But of course, Cohort of Sotek are unbreakable, so they will continue to at least fight and provide that poison. You can see Kotep, poor Kotep, down to 19 speed with that poison. So yeah, I love the Cohort of Sotek in this matchup. Just generally, Red Crests I think are pretty underrated. People try and use them as a frontline unit, which is definitely not what they're meant for. Definitely meant for a second line unit, either to countercharge in on a break, or you know, come around in on a flank, or find an opening in the line and get into the back line. Or, yeah, even if you just get a break at one point in the line, you can kind of send in them as a reserve to exploit. Almost like a light cavalry, not quite. I mean, they're only 46 speed, but still, for infantry, that is very fast. And the fact that they have poison also means they can bring things down to their speed, but ultimately, the Tomb Kings kind of just run out of speed against all these grinding Saurus, and that's why Saurus are a good candidate for chevroning. And I know I talked in the last video about putting out a chevron guide soon, but just generally, I can talk about it in a little bit. Saurus, of course, just clubbing through all the skeletons, breaking the bones, and yeah, Gorok and the Saurus Scarvet both paying a heavy price against that Hero Titan, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Somebody has to pay the toll. Razor Dawn Hunting Packs also got some good initial damage on those Ushabti Great Bows, kind of forced out the Ushabti summon as well, which is pretty nice. Good to use the Sepulchral Stalkers here, though, to get some good rear attacks with their missiles. Picked up some chevrons, and of course the Hero Titan with that very nice Necrotech support. I like that. The double caster as well. You would think, again, maybe not the best, but Styx making it work here with the extra regeneration and just a minimal spell loadout on the Lich Priest, especially that Time Warp. Again, Tomb Kings have a similar-ish issue to Lizardmen in that they don't have the best melee attack stats. Doesn't necessarily go for constructs, but of course if you juice them up, then they're just going to absolutely delete, right? And the pre-nerf caskets both doing quite well, but just not quite having enough in the tank. Actually, I think 2 might be a little bit overspent. I think 1 is actually probably where you want to be. But personally, I would say I like having my Lord on a chariot, or chariot's usually the best, or at least something mobile so that he can try and stay out of harm's way. And that way, you know, you're not attached to having your Lord on something slow that can get down to 19 speed with poison. But nonetheless, very, very fun series with Styx. Well played to him. And yeah, hopefully we'll get some more games in the future. As for chevrons, I just want to talk about a couple things real quick before I let you guys go of what to look for. Just kind of a preview of the guide. So basically the way it works is units will gain stats based on their based on their loadout, and it kind of varies differently from unit to unit, but generally what you want to look for is a unit that has good base stats, like really good base melee attack and defense, for its cost, that is, and we'll kind of talk more about that in the specific guide, but just some general examples here, like Empire State Troops are, of course, one of the most basic units in the game, and also probably one of the most commonly used units in the game, in campaign at least. But yeah, they chevron very well because you can see they have good base stats for the cost. 400 points. Come over here, you look, 32 attack, 32 defense for this price range is pretty decent. They also don't have any special abilities whatsoever. And this is important because if we go ahead and look here, basically all abilities have an associated cost with them. Usually these are waived for Regiments of Renown, not always. But if we look here, like we compare Bleak Swords, they are very comparable units to Swordsmen. Swordsmen have a bit more HP, a little less leadership, they're a bit slower, they have slightly more attack, slightly, yeah, Bleak Swords have slightly more attack, slightly less defense, same weapon strength, and barely any difference in charge bonus. So, I mean, these units are more or less comparable, but the difference in cost, that 50 points, mainly comes from the fact that the Bleak Swords, of course, have murderous prowess, rather, and High Elves the same thing, right? All of their units are balanced in for having martial prowess, right? So, in general, Elf factions don't tend to chevron usually super well because, or at least Dark Elves and High Elves. Wood Elves, Eternal Guard can be pretty decent, but they're already pretty expensive, and with all elves, because of their low HP and model count, you're generally trying to min-max cost as much as you can, so you usually won't have money for chevrons anyway if you're doing things right. But humans, on the other hand, and let's say greenskins, do tend to chevron very cost effectively. Goblins, if we look at here, for example, only 300 points with 20 attack and 26 defense. Keeping in mind, of course, that greenskins have a wide access to a plethora of melee attack buffs and just generally are more offensively focused. But if we look here, you can see they do chevron pretty cost effectively, up to 34.27 at 40.88. With 120 models as well, this is pretty much comparable to like a Bleak Sword or an Empire Swordsman. A little bit more maybe, but of course they do have expendable, which is something that you have to pay for, weirdly enough, I think. I'm not really sure. Maybe not. But anyway, back to chevroning. One thing to look for that's pretty easy to do is just look at these stats here. Chevroning increase, experienced chevrons increase leadership, melee attack, and melee defense, right? So a good example of this is if we look at Bretonnia. Questing Knights, you may not think on the surface, are that cost-effective to chevron, but when we look a little deeper, we see they only have Lance Formation, which I don't believe there's any extra associated cost with that. Immune to Psychology, they probably do pay a bit for, but Hide isn't really anything either. And if we look at their chevrons, if you watch down here, their attack, defense, and leadership, they gain +1 on every single chevron, right? So that means all of these chevrons that you buy are giving you quite a bit of value, and it does make them quite expensive to go all the way up, but I mean, 1496 is comparable to a unit of Grail Knights, and if we compare, I mean, obviously the Grail Knights are shock cavalry, we expect have a much higher charge bonus, but less weapon damage overall, and of course Questing Knights have primarily AP damage, very good 36 AP. Much better melee attack and defense. We're talking +12, +15, which is a huge difference. Not much difference in leadership. Looks like the veteran Questing Knights are, what, 5 leadership less, a little bit less armor as well, and of course they don't have the perfect vigor and Blessing of the Lady. But again, that's what I'm talking about in terms of you pay for those versus melee attack and defense. At perfect vigor and Blessing of the Lady coming at a cost. So it's interesting. Basically, what I'm saying here is watch these, because the chevrons that give you both attack, defense, and leadership, or all three, I guess I should say, are the ones that you want to buy. So like Mounted Yeoman that we saw in the Dark Elf replay against Styx, you can see here that they get +1/+1 on the first 2 chevrons, right? But then they only get melee defense on the third. So what this means is you need to either buy 2, or you want to go up to 4. Well, even 4 gives you only melee attack, right? So the 4th chevron isn't as worthwhile. But then you go to 5, 6, 7, and 8, and 9 all give +1/+1 again, right? So keep in mind the level that you're chevroning to specifically, you get the most efficient value. If you're trying to spread your chevrons around on some different units, then you want to keep that in mind and try and use them as efficiently as possible. The other thing as well is, I mean, Mounted Yeomen do have Vanguard. I think they probably pay a little bit of cost for it, but just an overall lower base cost means that the ranks will cost less, so generally cheaper units will chevron well also. So if we look here, for example, Pegasus Knights cost 42 to chevron, whereas Mounted Yeomen only cost 27, right? So it's less percentage value, right? So you're paying less for the chevrons, so the getting +1/+1 on those chevrons inherently gives you more value, right? It's arguable, especially more expensive units like Grail Guardians, where the unit models will tend to actually make the hits miss, or just generally mitigate a lot of their damage through armor and physical resistance and so on. Yeah, sometimes it's more worthwhile to spend the chevrons on the more expensive units, because, of course, then you're not going to lose the value of those chevrons if the cheap units run away. You know, there's definitely some decision-making to be made there, but just kind of as another counterpoint to what I just said about cheap units, Grail Guardians, of course, one of the more expensive units on Bretonnia's roster, also get +1/+1 from all of their chevrons, just like Questing Knights. So if you put them all the way up to rank 9. That means 68 melee defense and 45 melee attack. Now, they are 2,100 points, and that's really expensive for a unit of cavalry whose models can get instantly one-shotted by a cannon, something like that. But, I mean, that is legit melee defense. 68, absolutely. Factor in somebody like Raponce coming in with her buff, giving +9/+9 constant, and you'd be rocking Rail Guardians that basically have the stats of heroes, more or less, except for their weapon strength, which is absolutely incredible, right? So you can definitely do some fun things there, and just again, generally watch out for the value that you're getting from your chevrons. But that's it for today. Rambled on long enough about that. Yeah, hopefully I didn't spoil all the content for the guide, but I will be going a little bit deeper in that video, so stay tuned for that. If you do want to see it, be sure to subscribe, click that notification bell so when it goes up, you'll be notified. Give a like and share if you found this video helpful or you enjoyed it. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.